Hey, what's up, y'all? It's the Mother's House Podcast, and I am Deshaun.
Peace to the family. What's going on? My name is Corey. We in the building. We got our cousin, my cousin and Deshaun's brother in the building.
Right.
Shout out to Marty, a.k.a. Ofoon Maja.
Yeah, everyone. Greetings, family.
Oh, it's
What's
probably
happening?
more like Ofoon Maja, a.k.a. Marty.
Yeah, right, yeah. Exactly.
Either way is cool.
Right. But, yeah, we got our Black Panther series going, and, this is going to be our last show, you know, so we can kind of get off of Black Panther, because I don't know about y'all, but I'm Black Panthered out. Like, we just been talking about it for like the past 10 years, or 10 days, and it felt like 10 years. And then, you know, social media is very Black Panther happy. You know, I'm happy too, but, you know, all good things must come to an end, and we're going to just end our Black Panther era series tonight. But how's everybody doing tonight?
Good.
Well,
Awesomeness.
Everything is everything. All is in order.
That's what's up. I love when all is in order. But so we never talked to Marty about the movie, and then Corey saw the movie again. So Corey has even more stuff to say about the movie. But Marty, what did you think about the movie?
I think the movie was great. I think the movie has become a cultural phenomenon. The movie's gonna be one of those things where the whole 10 years later, everybody's gonna be asking, well, what were you doing when the Black Panther came out?
Right.
Right. You know, so it's it was good. The imagery, as far as imagery and seeing a movie where everybody in all the lead roles are black, that's major. I don't know if people realize for our children just how important that is for them to see their heroes. I mean, Thor and all them are cool, and I like the Avengers and all those Spider-Man. I like all those superhero movies, and our children love them too. And you'll see that, you know, when children play, they always want to be like the lead actor. So, you know, they would want to be Thor. They want to be Spider-Man, this, that, and other. Now you're going to have them wanting to be the lead with the Black Panther, which name in itself is just, you know, has a history in our communities, and it invokes a lot of things, the Black Panther. And just to see us being portrayed in a very positive light, and a very strong, not weak, not emasculated. The women were strong. Everybody had good roles and strong roles. So, you know, overall, I think it was a good movie, and it's good to get the people imagery about Africa to start changing it. And because I think a lot of people kind of still think that Africa is all about huts and spears and being in the jungle, which was a misnomer and something that was propagated long time ago, back in the Tarzan days, and was done purposely. But people still kind of see Africa. People still say stuff like, y'all got buildings in Africa? You know, people still say things like that. Y'all got roads in Africa? So I think this, just for all those things, the movie was good. I think just overall it was just a good movie. Good graphics, good fighting scenes, good camera shots. You know, Marvel do good when it comes to the sci-fi movies anyway.
right.
And this was no exception. So, you know.
And you got to give kudos really to the vision from Ryan Coogler. Ryan Coogler did it, put his stamp all over through this movie. And he's, you know, 3-0, you know.
He's young. How old is he?
31.
He's your age.
Yeah, he's our age doing the thing, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
So,
Did a really good job.
and that's another thing. You know, to have that many African people in leading roles in front and behind the scenes, that's major.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
Right. I agree with that. But Within the movie, there's a lot of aspects within it. A lot of motifs, a lot of hidden messages. So some are not hidden; they like right there in your face. What can I've been listening to the trail, the interview trails, and everybody talking about. There's a particular conversation within this movie that's being had between the African Americans and the Africans. Deshaun, I already know your perspective. We already shared our perspectives on it. Marty, did you capture that in the movie, and what do you pull from it?
What's the issue? Are they saying going on with Africans and African Americans?
They're basically saying that Killmonger represents the African American and T'Challa represents the African, and they symbolize the rift between Africa and Africa America.
I think that's okay. I think that's partly true in the representation, but more so on Killmonger represents. He does represent African Americans, but he also represents the child that was almost like the prodigal son to an extent. Because they even though one was born and raised in the United States, another one was born and raised in Wakanda, they still have the same Wakandian characteristics. So the one is the lost son, and one is the one is the son that was lucky enough to be raised in his own home. I don't think it's I don't keep up with the different lines in social media like that. But just me personally, I don't think it's any kind of. I didn't see any kind of rift between Africans and African Americans and that. But I did see, and I understood the anger that Killmonger represented, and I understood the sort of attitude that he had of wanting to get some getting at, because it's like, we done been through all this stuff, and y'all got all this technology, and y'all couldn't help us. Oh, it's on now. We about to get down. We about to get down with this. But also, he was consumed by that American mentality. Because he was trained by Americans, and he was trained to be a killer. He was trained to be a killer by the most elite killing force in real life America, and that's the SEALs. That has to be when it comes to soldiers and special units. That has to be the top one. And a special unit, a special military unit, these are the people that topple governments. These are the people that go assassinate leaders of other countries. These are the people that got Osama bin Laden. Not only got him, tracked him down in a cave. These are the people, the Navy SEALs overthrow government. That's what they do in real life. And so he was trained. So he was trained by the most elite of their killers. On one aspect, then he grew up on the streets of Oakland in California amongst some more killers. So he represented more to me the anger of the anger that comes out of desperation of somebody that's of African Americans. And sometimes the feeling of powerlessness because they're not connected to the motherland. So that's what that represents. And then T'Challa, he was, when he found out the whole story, he was hurt by it. He was like, man, why y'all left him? Yeah, shit. And then the whole thing with at the end, them starting researching, in the same neighborhood, this, that, and the other. That's represents them reaching out to each other. But I don't think they should be looked at as being two separate people, but the same people with placed in different environments.
And I think that
all of them are Wakandians, so that means in a larger sense, all of us, we all African. We just in different environments, but have the same enemies. That's how and it can go either way. As far as if you don't have a certain, you can get consumed by power coming from both sides, but especially coming from the American side, because that's what they preach. It's not taught that too much power can what's the thing? Absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's not seen as a bad thing in the United States. That's kind of seen as a positive thing. As long as you're powerful, you can be as destructive as you want to.
Right.
Which you can do that. So that's what I got from the Killmonger, T'Challa dynamic.
Go ahead, Corey.
I think that with Killmonger and T'Challa, the whole aspect of that, the one scene that kind of stands out is the scene, I said it on the last two podcasts, is the scene when, T'Challa will first visit his father in the ancestral realm, was able to embrace his ancestor, you know what I'm saying, because he had that personal connection. And where Killmonger, he don't have that same personal connection, because he was kind of stripped from that. You know what I'm saying? And it kind of represent the African Americans and the I guess you can say continental Africans having that same connection, but also on the same note of that, even though they cousins and they're the same people actually, it's just different in growing up in different environments. Growing up in Oakland, suffering from PTSD. Killmonger suffers from PTSD. You know what I'm saying? He suffers from post-traumatic syndrome. And he represents the byproduct of that. With T'Challa, his nation and his people, the Wakandans, didn't have to go through that. And the first person that brought the notion in the movie of, this Pan-Africanism idea of trying to help all oppressed melanated people is first comes to light through Nakia. And I think a lot of people miss that. Nakia, who's played by Lupita Nyong'o, you first meet her, she's like on a truck with Boko Haram type of dudes, trafficking women, stealing, young black girls. And she tells T'Challa, we had the resources. She's saying the same thing that Killmonger said.
Killmonger was saying, she echoed the very same thing that he said. She just had her methods may seem a little different, but at the same time they may seem the same. They're like the same. You got two people. Just think of two people that's special agents. Both of them they go undercover and do things to break up different operations. You got one that if they break up an operation and they run into the bad guy, they might just kill him on sight. You got another one, if they have an operation, they'll do the thing, they'll arrest them and take them to be tried and all that type of thing. Right. Who's the one that's right? The one that takes finds whoever the bad guy is, whatever, for lack of a better term, somebody that done committed these horrible crimes, and instead of you killing them on sight or taking them to go stand trial where he either can get off on a loophole or the government kills him over a long drawn out time in an electric chair. So who's to say which one is right? So Nakia is the first one to mention that, and her beef is similar. So she still, again, they represent that they represent that part of we need to help our people type deal. She represents somebody that's from the inside saying we need to help these people because she's that's our duty. He's saying it from the side of somebody that's on the front line, that's down in the trenches, that's like, look how these people are. These people is really crazy. It's a certain way we got to deal with them. So
all they know is death, so that's all we need to give them, And
also with Killmonger and T'Challa I think it's more he lost his father early than so much he was in the United States.
Right. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? He's the child that grew up without a father. T'Challa had his father to the end, and and both of their fathers died violently.
Yeah.
But he grew in his formative years, and now that's the part that really, really, really represents African Americans, because that was that's the theme of damn near the 80s up until now, the home without a father in it. But a young male, when he gets right at that age, that's around 9 age, right at that age of him really needing his father gets killed, go to jail, whatever, whatever the circumstance. But that's sort of like our story. That's been our story for the past 30 years. It's somewhat of a misconception, but there's some truth in it too. But I see more of it, not so much one's in Africa and one's in the United States, but more so one has a father and one don't.
That's what's up. What'd you think of and what the fuck? Oh, okay. And also, just to kind of go back to what you were saying about Nakia and Killmonger having two different views of what's going on as far as being spies and Navy SEALs. That's kind of where I felt like Wakanda was more like in America than it was an African country, because I feel like some people think that African Americans or Black Americans should be reaching out more so towards Africa and different countries in Africa and trying harder to build a bridge. And I think a lot of Black Americans feel like we have so many advantages, when it comes to all the technology that we have and all the different, like our schools and our this and our that. And, America is kind of like a superpower country. And I think a lot of the other melanated people around the world kind of look up to Black Americans, especially when it comes to like culture and stuff like that, just because we're like seen as cool or whatever. So I kind of felt like Wakanda almost flipped and made America seem like it could be a Wakanda. I saw that real quick. I don't know.
Now that's interesting you say that, because you saying that makes me realize something, that Wakanda is like Wakanda represents both the United States and Africa. It represents Africa in what we would call its most purest form of the people who wasn't affected by slavery so much. They stayed isolated, and because of that, and they kept all their talent and they built. But on another end, Wakanda does just like you said, does represent the United States. And because a lot of, believe it or not, a lot of Africans, how we would look at how the whole thing with Wakanda, Killmonger, them saying, well, why nobody came and helped us? A lot of Africans look to the United States, look to Black Americans in the United States and be wondering, why don't y'all ever come over?
Because I think
a lot of
people
that be coming to try to help us is white people.
Right.
Why don't y'all? Why don't y'all got because what's perceived as being rich.
Right.
And then what would be considered hard here in the United States, somebody growing up in the projects, blah, 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 this, that, and other, is a different type of poverty in other countries.
Right.
The projects is a mansion to some people in other countries. I mean, for real.
Yeah.
That's, if you got running water, if you can take a shower every day, you ain't doing bad.
Right.
If you can go to the sink and get your water, and you can take a shower whenever you want to take a shower, and you can turn the lights on whenever you want to turn the lights on, you're not living. That's not poverty. You good. No matter how small your house is or whatnot. But if you got electricity and running water, you good. So, expertise of Africans in America are looked for as having as far as expertise in certain fields, because they'll look at stuff just like we do, but they'll look at stuff and they'll see stuff like George Washington Carver, or they'll see some of the top scientists. There'll always be a brother in there somewhere. But just like we'll see that some of them are. A lot of Africans are, especially if you like the Georgia Techs or the technological schools, or if you're in the science and physics and stuff, the top students in those fields are always Africans. There'll always be some Chinese people, Indian, and some Africans, but that's pretty consistent. And in particular, Africans from Nigeria and Africans from Mali that are members of the Dogon tribe. Y'all heard of the Dogon tribe before, right?
Yeah.
But Africans that countries and that ethnic group is mainly from Mali. But Africans from Mali are those, especially ones in the Dogon tribe, are world renowned by Africans that are there and people here and just people in the science world for being really, 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 really smart in the sciences and physics and stuff. And that's to this. If you ask somebody, African, about people from Mali and in the Dogon tribe, first they'll be surprised that you even know about them. But secondly, if they're honest and cool Africans, they'll start talking about how these are some really smart people. They do this, they do that, and it's world renowned. And it'll go across the board if any of the people from other countries will tell you that. So. Say it again.
I was about to ask, in the Dogon tribe, kind of introduce, what is it? Space, not space, but
the Dogon tribe are the ones in their ancient writings and ancient beliefs. They was able to accurately calculate the distance, the circumference of the Earth, and the distance of the Earth from the sun and the Earth to the moon, and map the stars. Their whole thing is they're world renowned for their astronomy. And they was able to this Frenchman, it's this book called The Pale Fox. It talks about this French researcher study. I can't remember his name, but they was able to get access to their holy records, so that, for lack of a better term, their ancient records. And in those ancient records, they had what the circumference of the Earth was. They had what the distance from and this was millions of years, well, maybe not, I say 10,000s of years. They had the distance of the Earth to the sun. They talk about these twin stars, and at the time, people in astronomy didn't know what a twin star was. They didn't know what that was, but in their writings, they talk about the twin star. It's a binary star. That's what it is. It's a star that was, I can't remember which star it was, but they were saying that that's a twin star. And again, in physics, they ain't know nothing about that. And then when they was able to build strong enough telescopes, they looked, and from there they can time the pattern of light. They said those are two stars, because they were shining so fast. Because that's one of the ways they can calculate how many stars and stuff it is, about how much light it's emitting, and it was shining real fast. And then they realized that it's not blinking really fast. That's two stars blinking, and it's a thing called binary stars. And so, but the Dogon already had that in their books. They called it the twin star. So and this is the Dogon is one of the many stories that is that will make you that will be scientifically to this day, in comparison, will be the equivalent of what Wakanda was in that movie. Some people that were so far ahead technologically. I mean, Kemet is. I mean, that's one of the beauties of Kemet, because you can always reference Kemet because it's still there, and some of their phenomenal things that they still don't know how to do, how it got there, whatever. But there's other people too, the Dogon, talk about having a connection with Kemet, and it's all throughout from the top of Africa, where Kemet is, all the way to the bottom in South Africa or Zania. It's all type of like just incredible type things in the science world and all the other worlds of science and technology. And also, just as a side note, they said that there's more quote unquote UFO sightings in Africa than any place in the world.
Now you can read that in the movie. Their ships, even in 1992 when T'Chaka drove off and killed his brother and drove off. It was like a spaceship.
Yeah.
You know
and not saying that
not saying that they from outer space.
Not saying that they're from outer space, and not saying that it might be a place in Africa now where they got some spaceships. But now when they talk about spaceships, the FBI and the CIA, they talk about like, yes, it's true. There are unidentified flying objects. There are things that Navy pilots been chasing, and we didn't, and it was moving so fast that we couldn't understand where they get that technology from. They said during World War II, they thought it's certain ships and stuff they seen, and they thought it was the Japanese, and they didn't know till afterwards the Japanese thought it was them. So it's a bunch of unidentified flying objects that they acknowledge. It ain't no secret. There ain't no big government cover. They acknowledge that. What they will say is that whether they come from outer space, they'll say interterrestrial or extraterrestrial. Interterrestrial mean they from the Earth, and they just don't know where it's coming from on the Earth. Or extraterrestrial, said we don't know. He said, but they said, and these are the top CIA people. This is not no. This not no conspiracy theory. This not somebody that used to be in the CIA that's writing a book. This people that's in it now, especially like Air Force and Navy pilots. They see stuff like this all the time, and they say, hey, we just don't know where it's coming from. But they do seem to have a technology that's way beyond us, because the way they move, they just come and disappear and hover and dip out so fast.
Right.
That's what's up. So, how do you feel about the role women played in this movie?
Oh, that is a movie. That movie probably, that's the best roles I've probably seen in any movie ever that women have had. They were strong. They were strong, but they wasn't manly. They were fierce warriors, but they wasn't brutish. They were they gave them good roles, but it wasn't patronizing. The men wasn't patronizing through them. Like, they're gonna be, they're the we have these women in this role that we just gonna throw them a bone and we gonna be extra nice and because they extra delicate. Nah, they dealt with them how real men and women deal with each other. These are just women warriors. They wasn't tripping because there was no women warriors. It wasn't no male-female conflict. Like in a lot of movies, they always have some kind of male-female tension, whether it's sexual tension or whether it's just the way males do it and a female can do it better. It's always a battle of the sexist things in movies where they have a lead male, especially in action movies. But that is a European thing. That's not an African thing. It was never we believe in men and women have roles and responsibilities, but they're equal. So and that was displayed in the movie. And that his God of all women, they're pulling that from the Dahomian. That's where they was pulling that from. So and that's another thing they're doing throughout the movie. They're pulling from different. You can tell that they went and studied different African tribes, and they're pulling stuff from each one and putting it all together. Yeah. But the theme, like I've said many times before, it's a certain motif of all indigenous spiritual systems. It's a certain motif of all indigenous governments. They're going to be family-based. The governments are going to be family-based, but everybody's going to be politically aware. And on the spiritual side, of course, it's ancestors, and then it's those supernatural forces that you deal with. But everything starts with the ancestors.
Right.
Everything, and it's going to always be an indigenous religious spiritual system. Is always going to be something where they're dealing with plants and animals, but especially plants.
Right.
Plants are very important in all indigenous spiritual traditions. Because that's the method that they chemists, and they deal with plants, because plants are that's one of the places where the magic is actually with the plants, and they master the plants because there's so many different things they can do. But with all spiritual traditions, plants gonna play a big part in it, and you saw all that in the movie.
Right, you definitely saw that with the heart rate herb. Even with M'Baku, even with his little joke, I'll feed you to my children. But hey, real quick, since we're talking about technology and we're talking about traditions and rituals, I wanted to point out, y'all remember the scene of when they're inside the casino, right?
Right. In Asia.
Okay, so they in the casino. Ryan Coogler did a breakdown of that whole scene of Vanity Fair, and this just to get you in the mind of how he filmed, and also get you in the mind of how a lot of movies with real impact, they pull from real places, and every detail means something. So, in that Vanity Fair thing that Ryan Coogler did, even when you watch it, you can tell he's excited because he's not really stuttering that much. Because he's like, I know this. This is my land. And in it, we were talking about the different motifs, about why when they go in there, Lupita Nyong'o's from the River Tribe, she's wearing green. Okoye, she's wearing red, and she's from she represented the homing women. She represented the Maasai
the warrior tribe. Okay.
And then Black Panther, he's black, so that's supposed to represent the RPG movement. He said that specifically. That's why he had them wearing that for that scene for that particular reason. Also, he's talking about the different lines in the Lupita Nyong'o dress supposed to represent Wakanda text and language and how dear that is to their fashion and the way they move. And where Nakia, who's Lupita Nyong'o, she's a spy. So she fights with more of a kind of like more of a street fighter. So that's the reason why you see her out there. She'll pull a gun, but you will never see Okoye pull a gun because she fights with the traditional way of fighting. She fights more of a dance. You know what I'm saying? And he kind of breaks things down like that. He also breaks down like the reason why. Even if you watch a movie, they kind of do it through to redefine femininity and beauty in it by with the wig, the whole wig situation in the movie, where Okoye, she's not feeling that wig because she's a warrior woman, she's a woman of Wakanda, she ain't got to wear no wig. And he said another reason why he wanted to specifically have all the women from Wakanda have natural hair to redefine that whole narrative about what femininity looks like, and show that also femininity doesn't have to be, it can be beautiful and pretty and feminine, but it also has a strength to it as well. And it was really good how he broke that down. And also the difference between Nakia and Okoye is Okoye is tradition. Nakia is innovation. She's new. You didn't want to say and they play that is tradition versus innovation. They play that throughout the movie. Another thing that they keep pulling up, even with Shuri. How she's kind of like disrespectful on the Warrior Falls to the rituals. But, that's that youth. You know what I'm saying? That youth mind. She is the innovator of Wakanda. And then you got M'Baku. He cut himself off from the tradition. His whole tribe cut themselves off from the tradition because they so attached to it. And the one thing that saves T'Challa's life is actually what? Traditional ways of doing things. A plant. You know what I'm saying? That would save T'Challa's life. And not only just that, it took 3 women to save his life. Do y'all want to touch on any of that?
Well, I'll let you go, Deshaun.
Yeah, I'm gonna just say a little bit. I think it was definitely not just tradition versus innovation. I think it was also loyalty versus change. Because I think a lot of people in the film were loyal. Like the leader of the Dora Milaje, she was loyal to the throne, and then Nakia, she was loyal to T'Challa and willing to, you know, overthrow the throne, you know, if she had to. Versus the leader, the warrior leader lady, she was it didn't matter who was sitting in the throne. Like, I don't care. This is tradition. This is who I'm loyal to. You know, I work for the throne. It's not about who's in the chair. It's about the chair. It's about the throne. So I thought that was cool. And I also thought that it was just a lot of different situations where people kind of ended up testing their loyalty towards Wakanda, just like the Daniel, what's his last name? I never pronounce it right.
Daniel Kaluuya.
Kaluuya, yeah.
Kaluuya.
Right, exactly. So he felt like, yeah, I guess people would say that he betrayed T'Challa or whatever with what he did, you know, bringing in Killmonger and everything. So I think it's different things like that. But at the same time, I felt like he also was he was betraying T'Challa, but I felt like he was doing what he felt was best for Wakanda. So maybe in a sense, he was more loyal to Wakanda, to the fact that I don't care who's on the throne. I'm more so concerned with my country becoming a better country than I am with, you know, some king or some leader. You know, so I thought all of that was interesting. Marty, what were you going to say?
Okoye, she said she is, no matter who sits on the throne, she loyal to the throne. And what she represents in Kemet, the symbol for the queen was the throne. So, a woman, it's about the throne. It's not about the king. And that's all African traditional governance systems. It ain't the individual on the throne. It is the throne. You know, in Ghana, they sit on the golden stool. The stool, that represents, because the throne represents the people.
Right.
And it's sanctioned by the woman. The woman is the one that decides, okay, this is royalty. This is holy land. This is, and so she was going to protect that. But the thing that made Okoye kind of question that is that at first she didn't question it, and Nakia said, "Well, my motivating thing is that I'm trying to save Wakanda because he's going to destroy Wakanda." That's what he did, because he's not fit to be a king. And then you saw when they was fighting, when they turned on him, when they saw he didn't do something that was kingly. And see, and that's another thing that the generals, that structure, the checks and balances in African governance system is that the king has standards, he has people he got to answer to too. And if he don't follow a set of rules and regulations, they're gonna be like, hey, this is not what kings do. We bucket. But and then with what's Okoye's husband name?
Wakabi. That's Daniel Kaluuya.
Wakabi. I don't think so much he betrayed T'Challa. I think more because you know he wanted some get back too. He kind of was like Killmonger because they killed his parents.
Right.
So he had some revenge in mind too.
Right.
You know, he wanted to go with him to get him.
Right.
You know, and also they was kind of showing you the insignificance of Claw, which represents European greediness. And how they're not that tough. And it's like, we can just go get him. You know, why y'all can't get, what's going on? Y'all can't get Claw? And so he had a little anger in him. He had some of his motivation was anger motivated too. But also, they followed the traditions. And that's another thing about African traditions. Sometimes it's some traditional stuff that needs to be changed. Because and that's I can't remember the exact proverb, but they got a couple of proverbs that talk about if the things that you're doing are not improving, it's time to change something. So in other words, they actually have room in African traditions to tweak it if it ain't working. Right. It's not just stiff, this is tradition and you got to do it. It's dynamic based on the times. So if it's a part about the traditions that might be a little outdated or that's not working as applied to the modern times, they will adjust it. They have no problems amending the Constitution. But it's going to be based on, it's going to be, it ain't going to be just willy-nilly changing it. So, and I think that's what that represented too, because you had, he won it fair and square, because he has a right to the throne. He has royal blood. They do have a ceremonial battle that they have to do, and he didn't cheat when they fought. He just beat him.
Right. Yeah.
But it was anger that was fueling him.
Right.
And anger is not sustainable. Angry king end up killing everybody in the kingdom. Matter of fact, it's a story about Shango and how he got so mad that he got so mad he started spitting fire and it burned his house down and killed some of his children and one of his wives. And he was so sad from it. It's a story talking about Shango hanged himself. The thing about the king does not hang. It's a long story, but one of the morals of the story is that he got so mad from anger that he killed some of his close family. And a king can't rule by anger. Anger is not sustainable. Matter of fact, they got a whole bunch of proverbs talking about the king can't be angry. You can't be angry in the king because you're gonna hurt people. You got too much power.
Right. And they showed that a little bit in the movie. You pull that from that movie too.
Mm-hmm. Right. Anger causes you to not be honorable.
But just a side note, you recognize that Claw wears blue, and according to Ryan Coogler, the reason why he got Claw in the color blue, the color blue supposed to represents the colonizer, the separate that. Okay, he's part of the colonizer. Then you see first thing you see Killmonger, and he's in blue. He's working with the colonizer. I just wanted to point that out because people riding on the wave, off of Killmonger high, which I get. But when you said something about the woman creates the throne, who created the throne? Who created the crown for T'Challa? T'Challa wears a necklace. That's how he gets his power. Where he gets his suit, the legendary his sister, Black Panther suit. His sister created the crown.
His sister.
Yeah.
His sister. His mama saved him. His mama. It was his sister, his mama, and his lover who saved him.
Right.
His queen would be more appropriate. So, and these are all these are the women within a man's life. He got his, and again in African tradition, the women, and it could flip either way. But it's the women who make the king, and it's the women who can get the king the throne. If enough women get together, the king will be the throne, no matter how bad he is. And if enough women got together, a new king will be elected, no matter how bad the other king was.
Right.
it's women that, you know, and it's, you know, it's more so what women represent, because a king is just supposed to a quote unquote king just represents, he's a representative of the masculine role of protection. He's just like a manifestation of that. So he's like he's not the manifestation, but he's a representation of that. He's a representation of a bunch of families protecting other families. So but that's why it's like a masculine, and he's a protector.
It reminds me of lions.
Man is the Oba or the king supposed to represent how the man in the home is. That's what he represents. And just like in your home, if your wife is not happy, or your daughter not happy, or your sister not happy, there's gonna be some problems in that home. Plain and simple.
You're right.
And so
it reminds me of like lions, like how the lioness, it's like a bunch of them, and they basically protect the pride or whatever. Well,
they do everything,
right? And
they be like, oh, the male don't do nothing. All he do is eat. But then when look at that show and watch when he fighting. When he fighting off a group of new males that's gonna come in, and when that new male come in, he gonna kill all the children.
Right.
If you ever see one of them lion fights, they be going at it.
Yeah, they do.
and the women, but they do everything else. They do all the hunting. They do all the stuff.
Yeah.
And but yeah, and then the Black Panther itself, the actual god, the Black Panther is a woman panther. So it's heavy symbolism in there. And to hear Corey, hear you saying all the stuff that Kluger said he did purposely, you know, so it's really heavy in symbolism, good symbolism.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the movies that you're gonna see over and over again, and you're gonna see new symbolism. And and like I was saying, it's good to see that he was doing that purposely. It was obvious that he was doing it purposely, but still, to even hear it, you're going to have the stuff he did purposely, and then you're going to have the stuff that just came about that he may have not intended, but because of the movie and because of all the other stuff that's behind the movies and the ancestors and all the stuff in the spirit world, there's going to be some stuff that's going to come out that he didn't realize, that he may have not even meant to do, but it's still very symbolic and just as significant.
Ryan Coogler, when everybody was talking about the movie, they said the one they touched each of all the actors that won. It gave them the sense of like, yo, we doing something big here. Is when they was all at the Warrior Falls with the fight, you know, the fight for the throne. All of them said that whole scene, it felt like, you know, like they were connecting to something outside of themselves. And when you watch this movie, you know, it's so heavy in symbolism, you're going to find something that's going to connect to you outside of yourself. And, you know, and I watched it two times, and I pulled some more stuff out of it, you know. And I know when it drops on DVD, we're going to watch it together and pull more things and have more conversations. But I think we're getting ready to slow it down, close it on out. But I want to pose this question to you, Marty. Deshaun, you could chime in on it. Do you think, because me personally, if Wakanda is real, just leave me in Wakanda. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm titling this whole podcast at, leave me in Wakanda. But do you guys think that Wakanda, the idea of Wakanda, not necessarily to the point where it's like, because Wakanda is not a utopia. I think some people would categorize it like it's the perfect place to be, but it's not. It's still, that's another thing I like what Ryan Coogler did with that shows the conflict within and trying to maintain a kingdom. You know what I'm saying? And that we're all human at the same core of things, so we're going to still have issues and problems. But if we work together, we can build, you know, innovations and keep the children in mind. So, do you guys think that we can get to that place if we come together?
Well, I think one of the reasons that Black Panther is a cultural phenomenon, and why Black people just is so hyped, and Black people that don't even like science fiction like that went to the movie. Like my mom, she's not a science fiction fan, and she went to the movies. You know, and one of the reasons that it's like that is because we saw ourselves by ourselves without any influence from anybody else. That in itself is very powerful, and we need these spaces. Don't get caught up in that diversity thing, and we need to be some white. No, and don't feel bad about that. We need to have spaces where it's just us. And that is one of that's out of all the symbolism and all the sci-fi stuff and the spaceships and the fighting scenes and the pretty women and everybody looking nice that was in the movie. One of the things that just made Black people feel so good about that movie is because we was all together. And it was doing our things, running our own things. We wasn't going through no other person to get what we wanted. We didn't have to worry about, well, what the government gonna say, because we are the government. This, that, and other. Okay, and to get to your question, can it be like that? Of course. This is what my hope is, and I know it's asking a lot, but my hope is this will start to break some of the paradigm chains or boxes that we stuck in. We stuck in these. We still got these mental chains on us that it's certain ways that it has to be, and we have to be in these systems where it's another set of people that's running everything, and we gotta go through them to do everything, and that's just a paradigm. When you start. Anything that your mind can conceive can come true. So the fact that they can conceive a movie like that means that it can be true. And once we start understanding that it's no good, everything that a community needs to function, from a school to somebody building the roads to somebody to a DMV, all that stuff. We have the power to have that ourselves. Now, how can that come about? And even with the science and technology that was in Wakanda, we have the power to do that. Now, how can that come about? And can that come about without the involvement of people from other races? It can come. We can control the resources of it if we unite. Without the involvement of other races, I say that might be kind of hard because just the world we live in now. But it don't have to be the relationship that we have doesn't have to be an unfair one. Where they got all the, it's like if we make the money and it's a 80-20 split, they getting 80 and we getting 20% or whatever. It don't have to be this relationship where they quote unquote seem like they winning all the time. It can be a fair relationship. I got something, we under the grounds of Africa, we got all these minerals that you need. Okay, y'all got some technology to get them out the ground. Okay, y'all get them, but we gonna tax you for it. Y'all ain't gonna just take all the minerals. Don't give us no money. Throw us a little change, and then be going about y'all way and be talking shit the whole time. Is the Wakanda type of attitude I pull from it in a realistic sense can happen. All it really is asking is that we're in a world where we are controlling we're controlling and allocating our resources, and we're dealt with fairly. It ain't no you just come and rip up all our you piss on our traditions and cultures. You disrespect our women. You disrespect the men. You kill the men and the babies. You just kill them senselessly. You take all the resources while you're taking the resources, you're destroying the land. You poisoning the waters and all that kind of stuff. See, that's a European mentality. So all this stuff that we saw in Wakanda could happen on a small scale within our families, on a larger scale within our communities, and then even on a larger scale, I think you can even have a Wakanda where it's almost like a city that's sort of like Wakanda. And when you talk about in Africa itself, they have the potential to do these type of things. But we just got to, the word first and foremost thing, we got to work amongst each other with no outside help. No borrowing no money, not getting no kind of aid, none of that. We just, if they working with us, then it's on like a business deal. You got a product, we have a product y'all want, and y'all may have something we want, so we gonna work out what's a fair price to do this. But ain't nobody gonna get exploited. You're not gonna exploit. Nobody's getting exploited. If anybody if any exploiting going on, we gonna charge you what we think is fair, because this is our stuff that you're taking. This is our resources that we have, and from that aspect, Wakanda can really happen. And then to wrap it up with the technology, technologically, it is so. It's more there than what you think, because in some of these countries that they call quote unquote, and I put it in double quotes, undeveloped countries. In a lot of these countries, they don't have a lot of the structures that the quote unquote developed countries have, as far as putting up wires, the old structures of like for telephone poles and the wires and all that kind of shit. Those things are, a lot of the countries now from the United States, named the quote-unquote developed countries, they got to tear all that stuff down and put up, and now they can use wireless stuff where you just put up a tower and you don't need all this other stuff. So places that don't have all those structures anyway, it's easier for them to apply the new technology, because they don't have all the old, outdated stuff that was really kind of backwards in the way they was thinking anyway. Right. We want everybody to have phone service, so we're gonna build these wires across the world to everybody. You know, telephone wires is really like some. If somebody was to come like from another time and they see these telephone wires, say, what kind of backwards technology is this? They got wires sticking up. That's about the equivalent of somebody having a string hooked up to a can.
Yeah.
The places that don't have that, because they was underdeveloped, it's easier for them to put in the new technology, whether it's solar technology, whether it's the wireless technology. It's technology that the Africas and the places that are considered third world had before the United States. So the online banking, they was doing that all over them in these little countries for a while, because they didn't have regular banks. You know, so they was working Bitcoins and different online banking apps for the longest. Mm-hmm. And in every country, all these countries that's underdeveloped, this, that, and other, they all got phones. And you know all the things you can do with a phone. Right. And so, but that just shows you how the technology is not that far-fetched of, if in Africa you have more natural resources than anywhere else in the world. In Africa, the main resources that's in all the new technology is coming out of Africa. So it stands to reason that if you just take the minds, if you take those scientific minds and have them apply different technologies with the stuff with the resources that they have in Africa, you can see a Wakanda. Mm-hmm. You can actually see a Wakanda. That's quite all you have to. Once we get our children and their African genius connected with the technology and the different type of training that you need to understand the basic concepts of science, and that of science, technology, math, and art. It's some basic laws that you have to learn. You know, for example, like the laws of different laws of physics and different laws of algebra. And these are the things that help you work problems out as you as your African genius starts to say, well, this go this way. Well, how can we do this? Is the laws of nature which are scientific laws, those things you learn in the science books, the chemists and all them learn. Once you learn those things, and then they apply their African genius, their African creativity, anything is possible, because that's what they do now. They just do it for working for some kind of company or some country or some entity that's in direct conflict with the hopes and aspirations of their communities, and sometimes in actually a combative way to their communities. You know, the whole thing I know we've all seen the stuff where they have the Black invention list, and you see all these different things the Black people invented. We hear it and see it so much that sometimes it'd be like, come on now, we invented everything. But it really is that serious that we've been because that's the African genius. That African genius thing is not something I'm just saying because I'm African or something I'm just saying just to hype, just to pat my brothers and sisters on the back to make them feel good. That's some real stuff. That is real. Once you apply that creativity to these different different technologies, you come up with all kind of stuff. We do it every day. We do it all the time. But so yes, Wakanda can happen. We're not that far away from it, technologically and physically. Mentally, we might be that's where we might be far away from it from. But movies like this help us to see. But sometimes you got to be able to see it. Right. If you can't see it, even if it's in a fictional movie, you still can be like, you know what, that might work.
Right, right.
That's possible.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Especially for a child. You know, they need to like they always talk about. I've seen different things where they say a lot of the technology that we have now was on Star Trek in the 60s. They had flip phones on Star Trek. Right. They had tablets. They had the tablets. A lot of the stuff we use now, they had it. It's not like they invented it then, but in their heads they said, well, this was them thinking what the future should look like. So if you can visualize it, it can actually happen. So
as well as a lot of things are.
Them brothers and sisters could visualize a place where you got trains running on magnetic levitate, but that's a real thing too. There's trains that run on magnetic energy. And the Chinese are the ones who lead that, but they're building trains like that in Africa.
Right. So a lot of stuff is a lot of stuff that
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say that a lot of things that we eventually use with technology, like the CIA and a lot of those alphabet groups be using it way ahead of time. A lot of things.
Yeah, well, the military, yeah.
Yeah. So,
they do. They'll get it and test it and they'll get the technology, they'll test it, they'll apply it, usually in some sinister way. And then the next thing you know, they'll, sell it to the public because somebody will either exploit it or even find a good use for it in public use.
Right, but as far as
like this stuff, like with the spaceships and stuff that they've discovered, and they said, well, you know what, we can actually use this as a suitcase that's really durable and sell it to people, that kind of thing.
Right. But to me, Wakanda seems a little far-fetched. I just think it's a really good story. It's fantasy. Like I just don't really see it. I do think we're a very smart people, but it's just a lot in the way. I mean, a lot of countries in Africa don't even get along. Like they don't even like each other, and it's just a lot. And then white people run a lot of stuff, and they have their hand in a lot of stuff. I mean, Disney and Marvel made the movie, so I don't feel like it's. I feel like it's far-fetched. Just like I feel like Pan-Africanism.
Well, look at it this way: Do you think it's far-fetched for anybody for the future to ever look like that for any group of people? Like this, not even a group of people. Do you think the technology that's in any of these science fiction movies, whether it's a spaceship, whether it's a hovercraft, some of the stuff that's a start, do you think any of that is possible?
I think some of that stuff is possible, yeah.
So if some of that stuff is possible, anybody can do it.
But I don't...
If Oyinbo can do it, if white people can do it, black people can do it.
I'm not saying we can't
Chinese
do
person
it.
Can do it, a black person can do it.
Well, I'm not saying we can't do it. Like, well, I think we can do anything. But I just think it's so much more to the equation than us simply being able to do stuff. Like, it's a lot of stuff that we do. I mean, look at all the stuff we invented. But it's like we don't control anything. I think it's about control. And I think it's about people having the authority to kind of run things more so than it's about what we're capable of doing. You know, white people haven't invented a lot, but white people have managed everything. So I think it's more so that.
Now, but and also realize that it's also thing. It's we control more than what you would know. There are countries and. Yeah, there are countries within Africa and states within those countries where it might be some, people don't get along. But there are also states and within the countries and countries within these nations that they got a mentality just like we're talking. Yeah. And they running things. People don't just come running into them. People not just stripping their lands and giving them pennies. They charging them. They like, when you get these all these metals, when they go and mine for metals, it's the royalties that's charged on that. They got to pay royalties. This and like if it was some gold found in Europe or the United States, and it was a German country that had the technology to come mine it. They would have to get permission to do it, and then once they got the permission, they got to pay. They'll come up contractually with what they would get, but they would pay royalties on that, just like on any kind of intellectual project. So when you say that they have power and they're running things, what we're basically saying is that they can decide what terms we're gonna have for these particular objects or this produce or whatever you produce, and we're going to decide the terms on it. And it's usually a bad term, or it's usually a term that's corrupted because they got somebody on the inside that they done paid a bunch of money to let them get away with basically robbing and raping the country. But all countries ain't like that. It's some countries, it's a lot of, it's more than what you would know and not like that. And it's some cities in the United States where the mayor and the city council and all of them are actively doing things that would be considered them being in control and handling things. And it's a shift going on. It's a shift going on with a global shift, and it's a shift with young people. And it always happens like this. Like you've seen all these young people that's protesting about the gun control to Florida, even though a lot of them are not African children, but it's a shift going on, and it's always going to happen. All those people who are perceived to be in power, they gotta die just like everybody else.
Right, and I know things can change. They don't stay around
forever, and they're dying off.
Right.
They old.
And I feel like
dying off. And yeah, they do have a set of new people that's coming in, but there's also a set of new people that's coming in that's shifting power. That's a part of the power shift. And
right.
There's people in position, and just like you say, it's some white people managing everything. It ain't nothing work that's significant. No matter how big an industry it is, and no matter how, when you look at it, it might only just be one black person that seems like they're working in there. But it ain't no major thing that's happening in the industry. And if anybody listening, correct me if I'm wrong, this is what I think, where a person, a black person of African descent, or indigenous African, don't have some kind of part, and didn't play a part in a major part of it, some kind of way.
Yeah, I think we play a lot of parts. I just don't think we run a lot of stuff. So I just feel like it's a little far-fetched. I think, I get it, things change.
What part do you feel is far-fetched?
I just don't.
Do you feel the technology is far-fetched, or the people, or us coming together?
I don't see us coming together. I think that's the most far-fetched, us coming together. I think that I just think we're on a lot of different pages, and we need to go through a lot more to really come together. I see a lot of different views. I see a lot of different ideologies. I just think we're in a lot of different. Now, I think it can happen, but I don't think it's as soon as maybe we think it can happen. I think it's going to be a little further down the line. I think we have to go through more stuff before that happens, I think. But as far as technology and us being smart and us being, of course we all at, like, everybody know we all at, but I just don't see us coming together and really being this Pan-African, quote-unquote, power.
I think we already doing that. We already doing it right now. And remember this quote is from KRS-One. He says, "Bad boys move in silence." And what's to remember about that quote is that a lot of the things, some of the shaking and moving that's going on, some of the major shaking and moving, you won't see or hear nothing about.
True.
You would have to really have been kind of doing some studying, and or I won't say studying, following particular movements, particular people, particular governments even. But it's been some shaking and moving going on for a while, but particularly since the Black Panther days, since the 60s. It's connections and things that have been made and are being made that came out of that Black Panther, no pun intended, movement, the actual movement. So, and the whole thing about, and that's another thing that's one of those things that's larger than what even the people that put together the movie, the name, the Black Panther and what it invokes, and the history of it. It was during that time that the Pan-African movement really started, and it started because we was reclaiming our African roots, this, that, and other. But another reason it started is because Africans was seeing us and was like, I want to be a part of that. I really like that. I really, and it was not only the quote unquote pro-black movement, but it was also the art. James Brown, the Temptations, and all them, they're the most influential artists in the world. The Motown era to about the James, so that's about the late 50s to the late 60s. All the black music that came out then, the most powerful, and from the Fela Kutis to the Bob Marleys and all them, they were influenced by that. James Brown Band is really the progenitors of, if anybody know anything about Afro, it was Afro pop, I don't know what they call it, Afrobeat music. James Brown, just like James Brown is the foundation of hip hop, a lot of people don't know that. James Brown is the foundation of Afrobeat music too, his band. And the reason I say that is just to show how influential we are, and to show that during these times, it's been some major connections and moving and shaking that's been going on. That's still going. Some of these people are still alive, and they're still moving and shaking. And so that's why I say on one end, it's already started. We done went through some of this stuff, and it's still not going to be easy. But as far as us coming together, it's already started. And when it comes to us coming together and building things, it's always going to be in a low number compared to, because it's not going to be the masses. It's not gonna be the masses. What happened, and that's in all movements, no matter what the culture is.
Right.
The movement starts with just a core number of people, and then through their power, they start to control the masses. So when we're making this talk about whether or not it can happen or not, you might be speaking from a perspective of someone that's a part of the masses, but do know that some of the groundwork that our ancestors been putting down before slavery, during our enslavement, and up until now, but especially around the late 50s and 60s, they done made some major connections. And don't think it just got the COINTEL program just destroyed everything and there ain't nothing else left. It's some major things that got done and are being done, and some major networks that's been created. And that's why it's good that you got to believe that these things can come into fruition, because it's some groundwork that's already been laid. And some of the hardest part of this has already happened. The hardest fights and the struggles that was happening during from slavery times up until about the 60s. Now it's about being strategic and focused and knowing what your purpose is, and finding your lane as it relates to your family and community, and being the best that you can be in that, and having enough faith to know that it's some things that's already done been laid out. But if you think that it can't happen, then you will never be exposed to those things, because you have a block. But if you just know that if you just trust in that these injustices that you feel, don't ever feel that injustice will ever win over justice, or a lie win over a truth. And a lot of the things that we talk about in relation to black people, African people, or people that's part of Ma'afa, as it relates to the Europeans or the colonizers or whatnot, we think of a lot of the powerlessness and stuff we feel they're running comes from stuff that they're doing that's unjust, not fair. That's a lie. Those things won't. You can only keep up a lie for so long, and justice is always going to prevail over injustice, no matter how much they try to make it seem like it's not. In the end, justice always wins. So, and I say all that to say that because of that, I know Wakanda, of what I'm seeing as Wakandian in principle, can happen. Because it's already happened. It's happening. The fact that they made that movie. I mean, who would have thought they would have made a movie like that that had two white people in it?
Right.
Or two major two leading white people that had leading roles in it. That's all. Rest was just stand-ins in the entire movie.
Right.
And for the movie to, before we would say stuff like, they ain't gonna have no movie where the black, they probably gonna kill her now. They ain't gonna have that movie where they're giving all these positive images. They ain't gonna do that. That used to be the talk. That still is the kind of talk. Like, they ain't gonna let us do that. They ain't gonna, it ain't about nobody letting you do nothing. It's about you just doing it.
Yep. Hey.
And I think the Black Panther is the pinnacle of what's about to happen. It's like, okay, this is what's possible. Yeah, and I hate to use this example, I really do, but people ain't think they would see a black president until 2050 or something.
Right.
Even if it was that long, and now people kind of like, whatever.
But do you think Obama
use that one again? Say it again.
I said, but do you think Obama kind of symbolizes how black people think that we have some type of role in something when we really don't, because he really didn't do anything, because he was more so under the regime of the United States?
I think he symbolizes both that, but also just on a pure on pure symbology to a young mind who don't know nothing about the political system and how it works, this, that, and the other, and who's pulling the back, who's really pulling the strings, and the shadow government to the layperson that don't know all these things. All they know is they see this brother that's got a black wife that's the president of the United States. And for them, that means a lot. For a child, that means a lot. And not only does it mean a lot, it can inspire them to do a lot. So you got to take you got to take it. It was we'll say stuff like it's just symbolic,
right?
And it was, but symbols are good. Symbols can be good and powerful. You can really work a symbol. You can move mountains with a symbol. Now, those people that they motivated to, those children or whoever they're motivated to be the best that they can be, it is, they'll move within that, they'll move on that, and whatever obstacles and whatnot they run into, or lies or half-truths that they run into, they'll see during the journey. But just on a pure symbolic level, it was just, because we don't even have time to talk about the problems that I may have had with Obama and the whole administration, and
that's a whole another podcast.
But in 2008 or 2006, when Bush was the president, it ain't nobody in the world that would have thought a black person would have won the presidency 2 years later. Right. Nobody would have thought that. No, nobody would have thought that. That was the whole black president thing was a joke. So if that could be a joke and happen, like right now, a Wakandian type of state, not Wakanda itself, but a Wakandian type of community, city, state, to a lot of people seem, that'll never happen. This could be possible. And just like with Obama, we didn't know that it was already people putting stuff into work to try to get that to happen.
Right.
And it's the same with what's going on with that type of community or society. And it's going to start with a community. The community starts with families, and so just from that aspect, if you just employ the things within your family that can create a type of independent mind for the children, where they can believe that they can do it, whatever, that's the start of a Wakanda. That's the start.
I was just gonna say, I already, like, when I see Wakanda, I look at my family, look at us, look at our family. We got a Wakandian type of family nucleus, you know what I'm saying? Type of mindset, how we raising our kids, how we come together, our family reunion is like a ritual, celebration. We have a Wakanda within our own individual family, so we build off of that. That's how you build communities. You build off of that. You build from communities. You teach the children of tech. Like, you just continue to build off of that, and it's already happening. You just gotta look. Sometimes you just gotta look what's right there at home.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's what's up, everybody. We are at 1 hour and 25. So, y'all want to say any last words?
Wakanda forever.
I know he did.
That's funny. But yeah, man, thank y'all for listening to the podcast. We had a great podcast. Thank you, Marty, for coming, and Ofoon Maja for coming on the show.
Thanks for asking me. And Ofoon Maja and Marty are the same people, just so don't confuse the people out there.
Yeah, it is a great person.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Definitely hit us up in the comment section. What is happening?
Right.
Who's drinking or moving chips?
What a waterfall.
That's me. I'm rolling up a chip bag about to throw it in the trash can. That was not bad.
But
it's all good. But yeah, well, thank y'all for listening. Peace, love, and light to the family and everyone out there. Any last word, Deshaun?
No. Bye.
Peace.
Hello.
I will not raise my daughter differently than my mother raised me. The rearing I got from my mother, words cannot express. I could live in any time, I could live in any country, I could live on any planet, and I would be fine.
What was the key? What did your mother know? What truth was coming through your mother that's going to come through you to your daughter?
My mother gave us aphorisms to learn as children. And the one that there are two that stand out foremost in my mind. One is the inner reality creates the outer form. I learned this when I was in grade school. I was very young. And the other is the universe bears no ill to me. I bear no ill to it.